So the brutal murder of 7 aid workers, foreign aid workers, including one British national who was part of that, has truly shocked the world. And even politicians, even in this country, in the UK, are now scurrying for shelter. Mind you, these politicians also include Labour leader Keir Starmer, the chap who is all likely to become the next Prime Minister of this country. Sheer misfortune for the UK. Sheer misfortune that this is how you are being reduced to, that your next Prime Minister is going to be a person who has all along supported Israel, which has carried out genocide, for last 6 months with impunity. This is the level that you have been reduced to. That should not augur well for the country. He has now expressed his sorrow and anguish, over the development. Now, I thought this was the time to look back to what the top 5 Labour leaders had said in the immediate aftermath of October 7th attacks, including Starmer. Remember the famous interview that Starmer gave on LBC? And he said, when he was asked, does Israel have a right to cut off fuel, water, and food to Gaza? He has said, Israel does have a right. And then let's not forget his members of his front bench. David Lammy, the guy who aspires to become the next foreign secretary. Lisa Anandi, the lady who aspires to become the next international development secretary. Emily Thornberry, the lady who wants to become the next Attorney General, the chief lawyer for the government, and so much disregard for the international laws. And Angela Rayner, who wants to become the next Deputy Prime Minister. These are the 5 big names of the opposition party, and let's look back at their public utterances. Mind you, if you watch their interviews, you could make out from their tone. Either they've thought that they were very arrogant, they could get away with that, or they just simply couldn't care because they know that British public is fool and they will be re-elected because, they are the only alternatives. So, they can continue to support. I mean, it beggars belief as to how on earth, an individual or bunch of individuals can support a regime flouting international laws day in and day out. There could be only 2 reasons. Either you are heavily compromised by that regime, or you share the ideological similarities with them, which in this case is a genocidal ideology. Anyway, let's look at their 5 speeches on different occasions. And mind you, this happened right in the aftermath of 7th of October. It's been 6 months. Those days, the death toll wasn't that big. Today, as we talk about it, more than 35,000 innocent, unarmed Palestinians killed. Around 15,000 absolutely innocent babies, toddlers, and many more women among those dead. And Israel continue to target innocent civilians. And these individuals have not once apologized for their past utterances. Watch this. This is Keir Starmer, famous interview.
Israel does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right.
Now, his deputy, Angela Rayner. Look at the attitude.
Do you think there are aspects of genocide in the dictionary version of genocide?
I don't know. The ICJ is the right place for that to be determined.
Now, David Lammy. For this individual, he is more concerned about flaunting his future role as a foreign secretary. I just hope that everybody, all 5 of them, from Labour front bench, they're defeated. That will be a real lesson for these individuals. Listen to David Lammy in conversation with Victoria Derbyshire on BBC.
So they can move across the country.
OK. Do you support the order to move them or not?
The order to move them? Well, clearly.
Just yes or no?
It's not a yes or no, Victoria. I'm hoping one day to be Foreign Secretary and a chief diplomat. So it's not a yes or no.
Why not? Why not?
Can I answer the question?
Please.
Very simply. This is a war situation. War is ugly.
Now, Emily Thornberry, she wants to become the next Attorney General. Just imagine the frightening situation for the country when the person giving legal advice to the government is Emily Thornberry. Listen to her here.
I mean, I don't know.
They've already cut off the food.
I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is
that against international law? It's really simple. Sir Keir Starmer doesn't seem to think it is.
What is simple is that whatever actions are taken by a democracy, it has to be done in accordance with international law. And we have heard tonight from the President of the United States that he has been on the phone to Netanyahu, and both of them have agreed that democracies need to act in accordance with international law.
Pause there, if I may. Do you think cutting off food, water and electricity is within international law?
I think that Israel has an absolute right to defend itself against terrorism.
That's not the question I asked.
It is an answer to the question that you've asked, and I think it's an appropriate one at this time.
Now, Lisa Nandi, if she gets elected, she would become the next International Development Secretary. Before I play her audio or video, you have to understand the role of International Development Secretary, and then you can see the glaring irony, in her role. The International Development Secretary is responsible for honouring the UK's international commitments. How ironic. And taking action to achieve the United Nations global goals. Here they have been supporting a regime which has zero respect for United Nations. This lady, if she gets elected, and if she becomes the minister, she will be responsible for honouring or achieving the United Nations global goals, making British aid more effective by improving transparency, openness, value for money. British aid. Here, a regime is blocking aid to over 2 million population, and they have been, she along with her members of the other Labour front bench have been supporting that regime. Now she will be responsible for ensuring that international aid when she becomes the minister. Now just imagine. Anyway, watch her.
Can I ask you about what Keir Starmer said on the 11th of October? He was asked on LBC if an Israeli siege was appropriate, including cutting off power, cutting off water. And he replied, "I think Israel does have that right." Why did he say that?
He's clarified that this week, that he was answering the previous question and then went on to talk about the importance of international law.
Problem is, it took him 9 days to issue the clarification you've just referenced. And in that time, a number of people in Britain's Muslim community have expressed anger at what he said and at the position of the Labour Party. Various Muslim councillors have resigned. The Labour Muslim Network has asked for an apology. Will they get one?
Well, we can't apologise for holding a position that we've never held. Keir has been clear and consistent on this, as has
he wasn't
David
clear
Lammy,
on that
and
day.
as have I.
He wasn't clear on that day with LBC, though, was he?
Well, that's why he clarified when he was asked about it, to make sure that people hear loud and clear from us.
And it took
that
9
international
days.
law must be upheld. Look, Keir and I met with aid agencies this week to talk about the unfolding crisis, even from the position of opposition.
Right,
we have influence, and we're doing everything that we can to try and resolve this.
Let's see if you can be clear about Labour's position then. Do you think Israel breached international law by cutting off water and power supplies?
Look, I think this is an extraordinarily complex and fast-moving situation. There are 200 hostages.
And what's the answer to the question?
Well, look, Israel has the right to self-defence, and it has a duty to secure the release of its hostages.
Sure. But my question was,
international law is upheld.
Right, and so my question is, do you think Israel has breached international humanitarian law by cutting off water and fuel supplies?
Well, in the last 24 hours, we've seen water, medicine and food enter Gaza. It is in very limited supply at the moment, but I am hopeful that we'll be able to amplify and scale up those efforts urgently.
I am going to ask the question again. Do you think Israel breached international law by cutting off power and water supplies?
Look, I'm not going to sit in your studio and grandstand and tell you that I'm going to make big pronouncements about what Israel is and isn't doing.
All 5 of them have been given multiple opportunities in the last 6 months to reflect on their past statements and redeem themselves. They haven't done so. They have chosen not to do so. That shows which side of the humanity they stand on. In few months' time, we will have elections in this country. I think it will be foolish, it will be suicidal for the voters to not reject these individuals, because this is not just about a race. I've said countless times in my videos. This is not about Muslims or Arabs or no. This is about humanity. This is about standing on the right side of humanity. Now, do you want to choose a bunch of people who have chosen to stand with the regime which believes in killing people for fun? Would you want to trust these individuals, with the safety of the country or with the safety of your well-being? I wouldn't. Would you? If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways that you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.